So, have you ever found yourself sitting across from a friend, holding a cup of coffee, and just brilliantly explaining your own psychological flaws, like
Hmm.
with absolute pinpoint precision?
Oh, all the time. It's almost a sport at this point.
Right. You know exactly why you push people away
Mhm.
or why you panic over deadlines. You have the vocabulary.
Yeah, you listen to the audiobooks, watch the documentaries, maybe done like years of therapy mapping out your childhood.
Exactly. You are incredibly self-aware. Yet the very next day, a minor inconvenience happens, and you react in the exact same destructive way you just brilliantly analyzed.
It's so frustrating.
It really is. Your brain has this perfect blueprint for a peaceful life, but your physical body is still, well, living in a state of constant emergency.
It is a profound frustration, yeah. And frankly, it's the defining paradox of our modern self-care culture, right?
Totally.
We have this unprecedented access to data about our own minds, but we're basically mistaking the accumulation of that data for actual transformation.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are focusing on a really fascinating piece of source material that attempts to solve this exact paradox.
Yes, I'm really excited for this one,
It's a text published by Floatius on May 6, 2026, and it outlines a framework called Understanding versus Innerstanding.
which is such a great title.
It is. And the core mission of this deep dive is to explore the journey the text lays out, moving from simply hoarding mental information to physically and like truly living it.
Right.
So if you've ever felt a massive disconnect between the healing you study and the life you actually experience, this framework is entirely dedicated to bridging that gap.
And the Floatius Intentional Alignment Framework, or FIA as they call it, builds its entire argument around a very bold premise.
Okay, let's hear it.
Information alone will never guarantee transformation. The text argues that the modern approach to personal growth is, well, it's critically flawed because it stops at the neck.
Wow. Stops at the neck. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, we're going to explore the biological and psychological reasons why knowing something in your head completely fails to change your life.
Hmm.
And more importantly, what specific mechanisms actually allow you to cross that threshold into lived reality.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. The source material draws a very hard boundary right away, separating our mental processing into two distinct categories. And the first is understanding.
Yes.
According to the text, understanding is strictly intellectual. It's just your mind's ability to interpret concepts, analyze info, and, form conclusions.
Right, and we shouldn't dismiss the power of that intellectual capacity.
That's its place.
Exactly. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for logic and planning, it's highly engaged during this understanding phase.
It's what allows you to categorize the chaos, basically.
Yes. When you understand a psychological trigger, you can give it a name. You can recognize the patterns of a theory and confidently explain it to someone else.
But, and this is a big but, the framework insists there's a massive ceiling to that kind of intellectualization.
A huge ceiling, yeah.
I like to think of it like this. It's like memorizing the exact mechanics of swimming from a textbook, right? You know all the strokes, you know how to breathe.
But you've never actually jumped into the pool.
Exactly. You know exactly what trauma or nervous system regulation is mentally, but your body hasn't actually integrated that truth into the water, so to speak.
That's a perfect analogy. And the text notes that relying only on understanding leaves a person mentally informed, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but emotionally, spiritually, or even physiologically entirely misaligned.
So what does this all mean, practically speaking? Are we saying reading and learning is just a waste of time? Because, I want to play devil's advocate for the listener who has spent years doing the mental work.
Oh, absolutely. It's a fair question.
Like, is the text suggesting that all our cognitive breakthroughs in journaling are effectively useless unless the body catches up?
No, it's not dismissive at all, but it is demanding a reality check. The text clarifies that understanding is highly valuable. It marks the absolute beginning of awareness.
Because without it, you wouldn't even know there was a problem to fix.
Right. But the friction you're sensing there, it comes from biology. Your cognitive brain can process a new philosophy in an afternoon.
Yeah, you read a book and you're like, I'm cured.
Exactly. But your amygdala, your vagus nerve, your autonomic nervous system, they do not speak the language of logic.
Wow.
They speak the language of survival, which is built on, years or decades of repetitive conditioning.
So you're saying I can read a book on anxiety and my prefrontal cortex says, great, we are safe now, no need to panic. But my nervous system hasn't actually read the book.
Precisely. Your nervous system is still responding to the historical alarms. The brain is issuing a stand-down order. but the message just isn't reaching the troops on the ground.
That is wild.
Yeah, and the text points out that this is why you might know exactly what you should do, yet still struggle to live in alignment. Because your nervous system is operating from dysregulation.
You have the vocabulary of healing, but not the physical experience of it. That distinction really changes how we view the whole self-help industry.
It really does. Understanding only informs the mind. It doesn't transform the being.
Right. So if mental understanding is just the starting line, how do we actually cross over into physical transformation?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the text introduces a counter concept to understanding, calling it innerstanding.
Innerstanding. Okay, explain that.
It is the solution the framework offers, and it represents a total paradigm shift. It's fundamentally different from understanding because it is not a cognitive process.
So you can't just think your way into it.
Exactly. You cannot think your way into innerstanding. The text defines it as visceral. It's something you feel, practice, embody, and live.
Let's simplify that for a listener who might be totally new to body awareness, because the text highlights a really key term here: visceral awareness.
Yes, that is crucial.
The source defines visceral awareness as the real-time ability to sense your internal state. It is the literal bridge between having knowledge and embodying it.
Right, because without it, you are basically flying blind. You might tell yourself, oh, I am perfectly calm about this conflict at work, because your intellectual mind knows that calmness is the enlightened response.
Right, you're playing the part.
But visceral awareness forces you to check in. Like, is my jaw clenched? Is my breathing shallow? Is my heart rate accelerating?
It calls out the bluff of your intellect.
It really does. And this connects directly to the text concept of the frequency body.
Okay, wait, the frequency body, that sounds a little out there. Let's ground that.
I know frequency can sound like pseudoscientific jargon,
Yes.
but they're talking about a tangible biological reality here. When this frequency body becomes regulated through visceral awareness, calm becomes familiar.
So it's literally shifting from that chaotic fight-or-flight state into a slower, regulated rhythm.
Exactly. Clarity becomes accessible and alignment is sustainable.
That perfectly sets up the contrast the text makes between mental overload and embodied clarity. Let's use a real-life scenario to show this in action.
Oh, I love the email example.
Yes. The text talks about performative healing. So imagine you receive a highly passive-aggressive email from a colleague.
We've all been there.
Right. So the performative healing response, which is purely intellectual, is that you immediately draft a polite, super professional response. You tell yourself, I'm taking the high road, and you hit send.
But internally, you are absolutely seething.
Exactly. Your hands are shaking, you complain to your partner about it for 3 hours, and your sleep is ruined. You performed the healing, but your body absorbed all the stress.
Because your cognitive brain forced a behavior that your nervous system couldn't actually support.
Yes. But if you have visceral awareness, the moment you read that email, you don't type anything. You notice the sudden spike in your heart rate.
You feel that heat in your chest.
Right. You recognize the physical urge to fight back. And instead of performing calmness, you step away. You do 5 minutes of deep breathing to literally bring your heart rate down.
And you don't respond until your body feels regulated. That is what the text calls embodied clarity.
Which moves you away from what the text calls borrowed rhythms, right?
Yes, borrowed rhythms are when you try to superimpose someone else's healing routine onto your own dysregulated nervous system.
Like waking up at 5 a.m. to take a cold plunge just because a guru told you to?
Exactly. You're just masking dysregulation.
Yeah.
You have to find your authentic rhythm instead.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. How do we actually walk this bridge from the mind to the body? The text actually gives us a literal step-by-step map.
It does, and it's a very clear progression.
It goes like this. Information leads to understanding. Understanding leads to practice. Practice leads to innerstanding. Innerstanding leads to embodiment. And finally, embodiment leads to authentic rhythm.
If you look closely at that sequence, the turning point, the absolute bottleneck, is practice.
Because the first two steps, information and understanding, are just passive, right?
Right, they happen to you. You just sit there and read.
Yeah.
But as the text states, understanding is just knowing the path. Innerstanding is walking it until it becomes your rhythm. You have to introduce the physical friction of practice.
Let's talk about that friction. I want to highlight the real-life example from the text regarding meditation, because I think it anchors the concept perfectly.
Oh, it really does.
You might understand that meditation reduces stress. You can read the studies, right?
Yeah,
But you only understand its power when you've consistently practiced it.
because practice is uncomfortable at first. When you actually sit on the cushion, your brain rebels, your legs itch, your to-do list is screaming at you.
The conscious mind is literally fighting the physical body.
Yeah, the dysregulation in your nervous system becomes painfully obvious. But if you stay in the practice, you eventually feel your nervous system shift from chaos to calm.
You actually feel the heart rate drop.
Yes, that visceral sensation that is understanding.
And the text expands on this, right? It's not just meditation. It lists other daily practices for building this visceral awareness.
Definitely. It mentions breath work, emotional regulation, self-awareness, and spiritual growth. The specific tool matters less than the consistency.
So it's about conditioning.
Exactly. Through consistent practice with these tools, transformation finally shifts from theory to reality. It becomes muscle memory for the nervous system.
That brings up a staggering realization about how we spend our time. The text suggests that most people spend like 90% of their energy accumulating information, reading, scrolling, listening, and maybe 10% actually practicing.
If that.
Right. If we want actual transformation, we have to radically invert that ratio. 10% information, 90% practice.
It's an incredibly empowering realization, though. It means you don't need to hunt for the perfect piece of advice anymore. You probably already possess enough psychological information to last a lifetime.
So true. Just pick one truth you already deeply understand and start practicing it until it gets into your bones.
That's it. It relieves the burden of constant intellectual consumption. As the text explicitly states, understanding begins awareness, but innerstanding creates alignment.
That brings this deep dive full circle. Prioritizing innerstanding means you can finally stop chasing endless information. We've moved from the overcrowded space of mental understanding, crossed the bridge of visceral awareness, and arrived at embodied understanding.
An authentic transformation isn't found in what you know. It's found in what your mind, body, and spirit have fully integrated. When truth becomes a lived experience, alignment becomes inevitable.
Inevitable alignment. I love that. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to ponder on your own, building on the source material's concluding challenge.
It's a great question to take with you today.
The text asks if you have understood your path deeply enough to live it. So think about this. If your physical body were a completely separate entity from your brain with its own voice and memory, what would your body say about the truths you think you've already learned?
Ooh, that's powerful.
If your brain says, I have healed, would your body agree, or would it tell a completely different, much more anxious story? Listen to what your body is actually saying, because that is where your real work begins.